Sure. Right. All right. Let
Run.
me turn on original sound and share screen. Fingers crossed this works. Okay, y'all should be seeing my screen hopefully.
Yep. Yeah, got it.
Okay, so as usual, I gave everybody homework to do. So I did post the static mix as well as a full mix down, and I'm pretty sure nobody got a chance to listen to it other than Nick. So, but basically, if anybody got a chance to listen to it or not, this is Nick's song. It's already released. Very thankful for him for giving us the opportunity to use it for this demo. So what I did, he gave me all the raw stems, and I mixed it from scratch, and I tried my best to, well, not try my best. I paid specific attention to my own, and I did not listen to his until the very very end. Just to preserve some sense of objectivity, right? So this is mixed the way how I heard it, the way I wanted it, and it's ultimately very different from his version. So if there's any comparison to be made, it's to be made with the my static mix and this completed mix. And in case we just so we talk in the same language, the static mix means it's just level matching, so just a raw stems. There are no effects on anything at all, and it's just faders at that point, just nothing but faders, right? Just to get things in a rough area, and then afterwards, once they are set properly, then we can go into grabbing the plugins like the EQs and stuff. Um, so there are lots and lots of things that you could probably take a look at in this mix. And yes, we're here to talk about vocals, but if you see anything else you want to know about, as always, by all means, we can talk about it, right? Matter of fact, if there are more things that you want to know about in the future, we could always run a second session and we could look at something else, right? I don't dump these sessions. Okay, so what I will do is, I imagine, I suppose the best way to do this, just to get everybody acclimatized, is to play everything without effects and then play it with effects, so everybody could get an idea of where we started and where we are now, and then go into it. Cool. So I need to, and please feel free to stop me at any point, because otherwise I just keep talking. Alright, so let me turn off everything. And as normal, for anybody who's not using Logic, this is probably a treat for you that you can see what a real doll looks like. Okay. Alright, let's give it a run. enough of that. Enough of that. Because to be honest, it's completely out of balance in this way. Don't no need to adjust your television sets. The mix is completely out of balance because I just realized that there's far more that I can't just turn off things and make us go back to a static mix because there's way more processing going on. As you could hear from the how much louder the solo guitar came in there. All right, so basically, the point of that is to show a couple of things. The well, in doing that, the vocal was completely buried. So that, in a sense, that's a bit of negative training because that is not where a static mix would normally start, right? If you want to listen to the true proper static mix, I have it on the TRJ thread there. Okay, but the point is, all right, let's take a listen to this. Is now completed.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I was just wondering, I don't know, I'm not, I don't, is this Logic?
Yeah. It's nice,
Yeah,
huh?
can you not do, I don't know, I know in Reaper you can do a version of a project, so you can leave it, so you could maybe done the static mix and just say, oh, actually, I'll leave that one now, I'll do a new version of this project, and then you can move on, so that you can always go back to that previous project. I don't know, can you do that in Logic as well?
Probably can.
Yeah, maybe it's worth, I mean, I'm not, I'm just thinking.
Yes, you can. You need to save as version.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
maybe
just
something to think
save
about in
it pretty much
future.
as you described and call it
Yeah.
something else, of course.
Yeah, because then you'd have multiple tabs, I think, and it's the way it works. And actually, no, I think it's just a pull down. You just say, I want that version, and it just brings it back to where it was.
That makes sense. So usually
Yeah, so-
what I do is I just do a bounce. So once I finish a static mix or something, I just bounce it out. And every now and then, even when I finish this, I usually once I finish this mix, I bounce it down as a mix down because something weird about my brain. Once I get out of Logic and I'm listening to an audio file, like just a file alone with I can't see anything, all of a sudden I hear things differently. You know, when I can't move faders, I can't see a waveform or anything. It's literally just an audio file on my desktop of my computer. I immediately hear things differently, and then I'll listen to this and be okay, cool, that's good, and then I'll bounce it out, and then for whatever reason just hit play on that, and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, that is not what I want, you know. So yeah, but sure, apparently according to David, you can do versions, right? So let us go and listen to this. Is the level okay, or is it coming through okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool. So let's listen to now. This is full mix down, and we'll go as logically as we can.
They said they needed someone. Didn't think that I could be that one. Day I was calmly thinking, what if my chance should never come? The hour come, the hero. Maybe it's time for me to stand for something I believe in. Maybe it's time to lend a hand, and how we might just make it. I only fake it. Left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage. So I joined some heroes, better than my usual zeros. Now we're really getting somewhere. Change the world one mind at a time. For action now, they told me, don't you worry, we will hold these people who are to blame for evil. They will pay this time with their lives. A cheap or so they told me. At least mine apparently seemed like it was meant to be my destiny. this. See if those later years can bring me something worth the living, more than just giving up my life for something they said mattered. Let my guts splatter all around the world. There's people crying all around. There's people dying. This how it has to end. Banging a whimper.
Okay, cool. So before I start talking again, let me hear from y'all. Any initial thoughts?
It sounds good. I mean, I'm listening on these Stein. It's kind of, they're not great headphones, but I thought it sounded really good to me anyway. Vocals are. I think to me the vocals sound good. I think they're sitting. I mean, maybe a couple of places I thought it was maybe a little bit too much, but I don't know. It's hard to say. But I mean, I thought sonically it sounded really good. The guitars sounded. I always tend to put the guitars a bit too loud, but they sounded like really nice to me. But yeah, I thought it sounded good.
Well, nice song. It's got a nice pulp vibe to it, but I did listen to the static mix, Carl, and I think there was quite a good lift in the whole thing, and the guitars in particular sounded good. And I'm looking at when you're playing it, there didn't seem to be too many guitars in this track, but they seem to make an awfully big sound, really. So I'd be interested to know what else is going on in there.
Yeah, sorry, 'cause I have the guitar stack. I have it track stack there, so it's those are the guitars there. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 rhythm guitars. No, actually 5. And then is that 1, 2, 3? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then he has a couple like 2 lead guitars and one doing a kind of a ebow thing, which was kind of trippy as well. So it's actually lots and lots of guitars. And
that's a relief. I thought there was one hell of a guitar effect stack you got there, Nick, for a minute.
Yeah. So yeah,
he's got room for 3 more in his little guitar rack.
Anything else that somebody was gonna add just now?
Yeah, I was going to just ask a question. So, what did we just listen to? I was sort of familiar with the original release track, the vocals, and that's not what we listened to here, right? Because I could actually hear the vocals, and that's not usual for me with stuff that Nick mixes himself.
This is Khaled's mix, Jay. The vocals definitely mixed higher than I mixed it.
Yeah, so I can actually understand the lyrics. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, so let me just reiterate: we're not comparing Nick's mix to mine.
No, we're not. No, we're not. No aspersions cast.
Right, but yeah. So I definitely, I also agree. I did push the vocals a lot louder than Nick's own. I mean, the one thing I will say is that when I went back after I did this, I spent like about 3 days on this or so, and I went back, I listened to Nick's own, and I encourage you to do. There's one thing that stood out to me about Nick's mix, and when I listened to his, I said, how on earth did he do that? And that is space. Nick has an immense amount of space in his mix that he carved out for his vocal, which is why it could sit lower. So, but let's not get into that. You can listen to that afterwards, right? I wasn't able to carve out that much space without sacrificing that much. So what I did is I just pushed the vocal level louder and compressed it some more, right? So, all right, let's get into it. So, to familiarize what we have here, so this is my main vocal stack, and this one here, new Vox 1, is the vocal. So that light blue one is the lead vocal. That's what we're going to be talking about more. These 3 green ones are some outboard effects. I'll get into that later, right? And then this one here, this other stack, this other blue one is the backup vocal. With this green one is another. It's just basically some reverb, another outboard effect. More on that later. Okay. Down here, we have a Hammond organ, we have harmonica, we have 1 synthesizer, Nick, 1. And we have some cello down here. We have the whole stack of guitars down here. Anything you see that is this light bright green is me running an outboard effect, and that's a return. So you'll be like reverb return, right? That's something I'm kind of getting into recently. And these are the lead guitars down here, the bass. Interesting thing he did with the bass as well. We could talk about that. We have a DI and a bass with some like flange effects and stuff on it too. That was cool. And then all the way down here we have the whole drum stack, right? And SD, I'm assuming, is Superior drummer, Nick. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right, and then we have maracas and tambourines, and down here he was nice enough to provide his master as well, and that's what I used to compare afterwards. Okay, so what I want to do is let's listen to the raw vocal without any effects. I'm gonna solo this, and like we did last time, y'all are gonna do the talking here, and y'all are gonna tell me what you hear in this vocal, and what you think might need to be done to it. Because if you can't hear it, that if you can't come up with an approach on your own, then it makes no sense grabbing plugins. Okay, so I'm gonna just so all the effects are off, all the buses are off. This is just a soloed raw vocal to listen to.
It said they needed someone. Didn't think that I could be.
Somebody's feeding back.
No, that was me.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
no problem.
It said they needed someone. Didn't think that I could be that one. Day I was calmly thinking, what if my chance should never come? The hour come, the hero. Maybe it's time for me to stand for something I believe in. Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own. We'll only fake it. Left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage.
Okay, that should be enough. What are some initial thoughts? And we're talking among friends here, right? We need to talk about this vocal, critically here, right? So what are some, because I'll be outright, there are some there are issues with this vocal that need to be addressed for the purpose of a mix. It's a very, very good performance. This is how he performed it. This is how he sings. Nothing wrong with that. But for a mix, it needs some addressing. So what are we hearing?
It's a good level, but there's the occasional quiet bit, really, so it might need a bit of compression to even some of that out.
Okay. Arnold, you have any thoughts?
Can you play just a little section, another 10 seconds? Because I got distracted there by somebody. Sorry, Nick.
On our own, we'll only fake it. Left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage.
Thoughts?
It sounded actually okay to me. It's difficult. I'd love to hear some. Sorry. I'm getting harassed here left, right, and center.
Oh, that's all right. Okay, so well, look, the main thing is, as David pointed out, is dynamics. This vocal is very, very, very dynamic. Okay, and you can see it. That's kind of why I expanded it as well, to kind of lead the witness a little bit. You can see these are some huge changes, because like look at this one here. Let me get this right. So look at this level here versus these levels here, right? It's very, very transient. Okay, so that was the main thing I heard. When I was static mixing this, it was difficult for me to find a common a good spot for the fader to rest where I was getting enough. So with a static mix, you have to spend some time getting close enough. Okay, and I mean, say it once, everybody says it a million times. Um, Spending time on the static mix saves you so much effort, so much time and effort down the line as well. Okay, so let's start running through the signal chain. So we assume now that we have the faders set. We have good levels, throughout and whatever. Once again, you can listen to the static mix before on the with the SoundCloud link. So the first thing I have here is I have an instance of RX7. This is a declick. I'm not Nick. I'm not sure if you comped. It sounds like you may have comped this as some the vocal throughout, because I was getting like some clicks throughout, right? So and it could just be mouth clicks. It could be the mic. It could be whatever. So this one had quite a few clicks that were popping up more when I added compression. So I just pulled all my plugins down, dropped an instance of this click thing, and it usually tells you. I don't know if you ever used this thing before, but it works really, really well. And I didn't. You have to drop the I had to drop the sensitivity on this a little bit, because if it's set too high, it starts biting out actual pieces of the vocal, and you definitely don't want that, right? So that's first thing. Nothing major there. Okay, second thing is EQ. So let us listen to what happens when we add and remove EQ. So this is with it bypassed, and right. So bypass first.
It said they needed someone. Didn't think that I could be that one. Day I was calmly thinking, what if my chance should never come? The hour come, the hero. Maybe it's time for me to stand for something I believe.
All right. So basically, it should be a fairly similar curve to what any of y'all would draw, because there is some high passing going on. I knew that this mix had a lot of bass, a lot of low frequencies. So a lot of this mix was sculpting out low frequencies to prevent that buildup. So in this case, I high pass more than I probably would in other vocals, but I went this much. Just took a little bit of moving around, and then you tend to get so this is a typical scoop I would do around in this area to get the sort of chesty resonance out, right? Sounds like this. Solo that.
Should never maybe to stand.
Not sure if that's loud enough for y'all to hear it, but it just this little scoops, right? And these low mid frequencies that could kind of build up a little bit more resonance. Another reason for this is I use quite heavy compression on this track, and I actually ended up having to go back in the EQ and scooping out some more of this, because sometimes what happens with heavy compression is it accentuates certain frequencies, right? And after the compression, I was getting too much of that low mid boxiness, so I went back in and I scooped out some more of this stuff. And then as well, this is basically just a little high-end boost here to create a little bit more clarity and stuff, right? Feel free to stop me anytime. I'm just gonna move on. Second thing on the chain is some saturation.
Just as an aside, I've just loaded up my mix. That curve on that vocal is almost exactly the same as mine.
Is it?
Mm.
Really?
Very,
Wow.
very similar, yeah.
Wow.
I really am surprised at that.
No, it's just correct. That's all.
It's just surprising at how close we are. That's all.
How much? I am curious, as you say that. How much high passing did you do? Because for me,
mine was high passing from 96, so you've got a little bit higher, I think. Yeah, you've gone higher.
This is more than I would normally do for.
But I've gone sharper down than you, so.
Okay, makes sense. Because this is a 12 dB per octave cut.
Yeah,
So
I've got 48.
Oof. Okay. All right. So yeah, it'll probably work out to roughly the same.
I was going to ask one question about the. Can I have a look at the? Can you go back to the vocal, the audio,
The waveform itself.
the waveform? Am I the only one that? I mean, what I'll typically do on a main vocal is I'll actually go through and I'll actually. With Reaper, it's very, I guess, and probably it's very easy here as well. But in Reaper, it's really easy just to go in and edit and cut things. But I'll basically go to sections and cut it and raise the levels. It's very easy to do, so you can actually pull
Clip gain, basically, right?
Sorry.
It's called like clip gain in Pro Tools.
Yeah, basically, it's essentially it's basically I'm editing. I'm taking out all the space. I'll take out spaces sometime with some cleaning up the vocals. Essentially, if I'm happy with the vocal performance, I'll actually. So you were saying obviously there's areas that are obviously it's quite there's a lot of transits. It's it varies. There's lots of dips, and so what I'll do is I'll actually go in and if that section's quiet, I'll actually cut it and I'll actually raise it to bring it up to the level that. And of course that's what compression does as well. But sometimes I don't know. I just prefer. I like to go through the whole process of cleaning up the main vocals anyway. So I'll take out all these little. I'll keep some in, obviously, because you don't want to take them all out because it sounds too artificial. But I just wonder, does anybody else do that? Is it just me?
No, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
It's something that if you have the time to do it, by all means, yeah, because that is essentially kind of what compression is doing as well.
Yeah, I'll compress as well, but I just generally I kind of like. I don't know. Sometimes, as you say, with compression, you do get some unwanted artifacts, and sometimes maybe if it takes half an hour or whatever, it doesn't. I've got it down to a fine art now. I can go whip through a vocal track quite quickly and just raise and take some of the annoyances. There's a little bit. Right. Some of the sibilants sometimes you can actually get rid of just by removing it.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Putting a fade on and stuff.
It is something that if you do have the time to do, by all means, especially if you have one or two very stray transients, so very very rogue transients. Yes, that is something I'd recommend. And the reason I'm just zooming in on here,
I think for me it varies at least partly on the song. I'm just looking at this one because it's certainly something I do sometimes as well, but I didn't do much of it on this one. I think this one I thought would, and I really heavily compressed this one. This has got three compressors on it. I normally do two. This has got three on it, but it does vary from song to song with me. Not just whether I've got the time, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's over a year ago I did it, so I don't remember exactly why, but I can see that I did a little bit of automation in bringing the some bits up, but it is mainly compression for me. But
I tend to be close to what Arnold does, and sometimes I go through Melodyne as well, not so much to tune and stuff, but to get rid of where you stood on the microphone stand and maybe had too many breaths that you wanted and take as much of that out as you can.
Yeah, and like I was just gonna show here, this intro guitar solo, is one area where I did use some clip gain. So there was a bit of resonance. Here he had some like a feedback effect coming down to the end, and I just made a clip there, and down here I dropped that down by 3 dB, and then I just put two little crossfades on it so that you don't hear anything. So it is absolutely a technique that is useful at different parts in the mix, right? But I will go through. I used serial compression on this track, and I will get to how I use the serial compression to avoid having to use clip gain instead. It's funny you say that, Nick, because over here I left this track on the extreme left here. This is the first run I made at mixing the vocal. You can see it has a lot more plugins on it, and it actually has 3 compressors on it. So the first time I did this, I did it with 3 compressors, and then afterwards I said, oh my god, this is ridiculous. So I made a duplicate, I started back from scratch, and I made it work with 2 compressors instead, and it came out a lot better the second time around. So okay. So any more questions on that? Can I move on? Yes, good. All right, cool. Right, so the next thing is some saturation. This vocal was super clean. The whole arrangement was super clean. There was not really a whole lot of additional fuzz to it and stuff. So I just made the effort to start dirtying things up a little bit and creating some more high frequency excitation. The first time I tried this, as you can see over here as well, I used it might be ghosted, you may not see it. I used a neutron exciter, but that was just way too harsh. So I went over to Nectar and I just used some regular old tape saturation. Let's see what that sounds like. Turn on this, solo that, and turn that off.
Again? What if my chance should never come? The hour come, the hero. Maybe it's time for me to stand for something I believe in. Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it.
So what this in a big way translates to is a volume bump, but it's not just volume, it's more high-end frequencies in particular, which are getting more overtones, more harmonics and stuff, which it is adding to it, right? So this one is not, even though I have it at 100%, which is the first time I've ever actually put one of these things at 100%. It's not making it fuzzy by any means, but it is definitely creating some more texture to the vocal, right? And it's also another step, because saturation is kind of a low grade form of compression. It is also helping to scatter things out as much as possible, and getting prepared for as like a first stage of compression, if that makes sense, right? So that's why also I like to put the EQ and the excitation or saturation before the compressors, because now the compressors are going to start holding on to things and doing some work here. Arnold, are you still here or no? Gosh. All right. Well, anyway. So, oh, there he is. Cool. Can't hear you, but that's all right. Okay, so let's talk about.
I'm eating a cracker. That's why.
Okay, cool. All right. So let me show you how I got around this problem of having to use clip gain. This is the first stage of compression, and this one is specifically targeting the tops of the high ends of the transients. Okay, so starting from down the bottom here, I have a very fast attack. I want to hold on to the transient, practically the entire transient. So 5 milliseconds. I only want to hold on to the transient. I don't want to hold on to anything else, just the front end of the waveform. So I have a very fast release as well. So fast attack, fast release, just to hold on to that transient and let go, right? I have a threshold set. So basically what I did is I played for a little while, and I started increasing the threshold just enough until it started, the tops of those transients, the loud ones started coming through. And when they came through at like about, 1 to 2 dB. Okay, so you just saw the needle jumping up 1 to 2 dB here, meaning, and then everything else was under the meter. So I was like, cool, good. I've isolated those. After tuning the threshold to get just that alone, then I increased the ratio to 10 to 1. So that is 10. This is way more, way higher ratio than you would ever use for a full signal. But once again, I just want to squash down the transients themselves, the large ones. So 10 to 1 ratio, and this thing took basically 5.5 dB of makeup gain to bring it back. So let's see what that sounds like now.
Maybe it's time for me to stand for something I believe in. Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own with only fake it left, with dreams of what could be.
You know what? I'm just going to loop that section so we can hear. Stop, please. Thanks. Yeah, let's loop that section so we could hear exactly what that compressor is doing, because this is the crux of the matter here, really. This was the main challenge I had with this vocal.
Maybe it's
So this, I'm gonna take off the compressor so you can get an idea of how dynamic the vocal is, and then let's hear what happens when I turn this on. So this is with it off.
maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own with only fake it left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage.
On.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own with only fake it left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage. Maybe.
Okay, so there are a couple of phrases that you could pay attention to here where you really hear the difference. At least I can. Let me find one. Hang on.
We might just make it on our own with only fake it left.
Let me see if that was one.
Left with dreams of what could be. With dreams of what could be if we had the courage.
So let's listen to this portion here.
If we had the courage.
Okay, so that's a good example right there. So this, because you could actually see it's very choppy here, right? So without the compressor, it sounds very, very sharp. There's not really the length of the note is very short, right? It's very staccato. Let's listen to that.
If we had the courage.
Okay, now with the compressor on, you should hear a little bit more sustain to each note.
If we had the courage. So
Any yes, no? A little bit. So it's hard to, I know it's hard to hear, especially, I mean, me mixing it, obviously I've heard this a million times now, right? I always find it difficult to hear things like this when you are hearing it for the first time, right? So if you want, you could take my word for it. I don't want to spend too long on that. So, but basically, that now gives me, what happened, Nick? Okay. So, all right. So basically that has now prepared my signal a lot better for my more main compressor. So this is my main compressor where I have a more regular attack, 20 milliseconds, medium release as well, 20 milliseconds and 54 milliseconds as well. Deeper ratio, or larger ratio, higher ratio to capture more of the signal. So we're getting down deeper into the signal. And it's a 4:1 ratio, which is, normal, right? And this one also took 5 dB of makeup gain because I'm grabbing onto a larger chunk of the signal, deeper into the signal now. So it will still take a lot of makeup gain. I suspect we'll hear more on this one. We'll find out. Let's use the same thing. So this is with it off.
maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own with only fake it left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage. Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own with only fake it left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage.
Any questions on that? No? Okay. So once again, this is the signal was prepared a little bit easier for me now to use this compressor and to do more work on it. So with those just 2 compressors, I was able to balance out the vocal and do like 90% of the work right there. There are some other things I did. So I have, what is this? Okay, so as I said, with with compression, sometimes you get some additional frequencies accentuated. So I got a little bit of kind of what's the word I'm looking for, boy? So let's lack of a better word, a couple ugly frequencies kind of popping out a little bit. So this compressor, I won't even bother to play this for you because you won't hear it. But this EQ, sorry, is just here to scoop out a little extra of something that was accentuated after the compression. Okay, and it was once again like a last minute change I made as well. So you won't. I'm not even going to play this. You won't hear it, but just be aware that after compression, sometimes you may need another EQ. It's not the end of the world to put another EQ on after it, okay? So, questions on that? Because afterwards I'll move on to effects. Good, moving on to effects now. Okay, so the way when I mix a vocal, a big part of mixing the vocal is keeping it a little bit louder in the mix to start off with the understanding that when I add ambience or effects, certain things will be rounded off a little bit. So once you add a little reverb, add a little delays or whatever, it will scatter things about a little bit. So it's not quite so stark. And that's why you could get away with having a louder vocal in the static phase. Right? It just works for me better that way to keep things louder initially because I know that the ambience will smoothen things out a little bit. Now in this particular case, the first step of effects I wanted was actually not to round it off, but to make it even brighter, right? And the way I did that was with the use of what is bus 2? Where's bus 2? Bus 2 is a call it quick slap, right? So slap. So I used, this is a slap delay, a slapback delay, but even faster. So it's a stereo delay. This is left channel, right channel. A 16th triplet on this side and a 1/32 dotted on that side note, right? You can hear what that sounds like.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own, we'll only fake it. Left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage. Maybe.
So it's shorter than a typical 16th note slapback delay because I just wanted to create like just a very quick reflection. Didn't want it to really be a noticeable effect on its own, but rather just to create that quick shimmery sort of reflection to create some more brightness and excitation in the mix, right? And I can play that with and without. So this is in the context of the mix now, and I'll remove that and put it back on.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own, we'll only fake it. Left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage. Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own, we'll only fake it. Left.
Hopefully you're hearing it. It's subtle, I know, but it does add a little something. Remember, everything is cumulative, right? So little, you
I don't think
really be...
it's quite prominent actually. It
Oh
works.
yeah,
It sounds
okay,
really good. No, it does sound really good actually.
I'm
It makes
not sure
quite a difference.
how much is feeding through to you guys. So, but okay, great. If you could hear it, then great, because I can hear it, right? And I did actually start off by trying a traditional 16th note slapback delay, but I couldn't get it to work, so I messed around and I basically landed on that instead. Second effect.
I think for me, what's distracting is there's a lot of other vocals going on at the same time.
Sorry,
So
let
I'm
me
having
mute
all.
that.
Yeah, if you just play the lead and forget all the background vocals, I think it might be coming even clearer.
Yes, my fault. I just muted that there. You want me to play it back again, or you okay?
Yeah, play it. Do one more time, thanks.
Okay, sure. So this was off. You can see when I'm turning it off, on and off, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on
Yeah, that's much clearer because there are other vocals that are sort of echoing the
Back,
slapback.
Yeah, my mistake. My mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So and you know the song had a very sort of 80s ish punk feeling to me. So you know those kind of slapback delays and stuff. You know, is definitely very 80s for me. Second effect now, because uh, the second one is just some reverb. I think. What's bus five? Bus five is some chroma verb. So nothing too fancy on this reverb. I can let you hear what it sounds like on its own. So that. See. No, I have to. Oh, turn it on. Okay. Okay, so this is an interesting reverb. I was telling somebody about this the other day. Adrian was so in Logic, Chroma Verb is my preferred reverb, and you have all your normal things, your room, chamber, concert hall, that sort of thing. But down here, you have some more over the top effects, kind of almost sci fi. This one called Bloomy is a useful one because what it does is it it doesn't just create reflections, it almost generates like evolving things going on as well. It's a very lush over the top reverb, and you have to use it sparingly, certainly in a place like this. But I wanted something just to scatter around all over the place. I didn't just want a straightforward reflection, at least not for this. So let's play that with and without. Solo that.
Maybe it's time to
And
let.
let me kill the slap as well. So just a few reboot.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand. We might just make it on our own. We'll only fake it. Left with dreams of what could be if we had the courage.
It's very subtle. It's just there to a little seasoning, not too much. With that kind of thing, you don't want to hear it on its own. Definitely not. Okay, so questions? Can I move on? Good, moving on. Next thing is now we go into some more interesting things that you may or may not have seen before. So what I started doing on top of that is playing around with some outboard effects. So this is going from the door into my guitar pedal board, then back into door. So I routed the audio, I routed the vocal out, and sent it through different effects plugins. Then recorded them back in, and basically just mix them back in like parallel, in mix them back in parallel, right? So this one here, let me just get rid of that. So this one here is a reverb, and so this is using my new UA effects reverb pedal, and I think this one was might have been a spring reverb or something. I could tell you in a second.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand. We might just make it.
So this one is very, very bright, right? And as you can see, I also have an EQ on it, and I just scooped out all of the low stuff because I didn't need any more low frequency coming up and muddying up anything. So it's just for additional brightness, right? And this reverb, all of these effects, I also have drawn automation for as well. So these outboard effects, there are 3 of them I've generated here. Why is something else soloed? Why are those things muted? Right. So these 3 effects, the 3 effects that I've generated, and as much as I hate automation, it did help drawing some automation for these things, so that just for the chorus sections alone, you got an additional second layer of effects coming in, right? So and as you can see, these are the 3 chorus sections here, right? So once again, this one here is the reverb.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand.
right? So once again, just for the chorus, you get an additional boost of ambience. This one here is a flanger and a chorus. Once again, using my guitar pedals. That's what it sounds like.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand, and how we might just make it our own with only.
And you know what? Let me solo the main vocal as well so you can hear what happens when it goes into the chorus.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand, and how we might just make it our own with only fake it left, with dreams of what could be if we had the courage. Maybe.
Right? Hopefully you can hear that. And the third one I have is, this one is some overdrive distortion. That's what this sounds. And this one is not automated, it's just set at a low level throughout. So this is just to create some little bit of dirt in the vocal and give it some more sort of like compression and round it out a little bit more. Oh, let me play it on its own.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand, and how we might just make it our own with only fake it left, with dreams of what could be if we had the courage.
Cool. So you can't hear this on its own in the mix. You don't want to, but when you add it, it just creates a little hint of more grit and stuff. And these are with all three effects. I'll group them, take them off, and put them back on. So off now.
Maybe it's time to lend a hand, and how we might just make it our own with only fake it left, with dreams of what could be if we had the courage.
All right. So that is basically it for the main vocal. So I'm going to collapse that, and this is the backup vocal. Has a similar kind of, this is the backup vocal here. Similar kind of chain. I think on this one I did use 3 compressors because it's basically same kind of vocal performance, and I think this one was even more dynamic than the first one because he was sort of like, he was doing harmonies, he was doing all sorts of different things on this one. So this one took even more balancing. It's the same thought process throughout, right? And on this one has, on this one I didn't even separate things. So it has the distortion, the flanger, and the chorus on it, but no reverb on this one. I kept the reverb all in the box for this one. Didn't need any additional effects on that one, right? So that's what I have so far. I don't want to move on. Let's talk about it. Anybody has some questions? I've been talking for a while.
So is this an excuse for you to use your new pedal?
It is, of course it is. Of course it is.
It sounds good. I mean, it's obviously very new to me. It sounds great. I mean, I must admit, and I think the combination of them all together sound really, really good. Really does give it that extra. As you say, I love this kind of stuff, especially in vocals, but it does just give it that extra, it's like sprinkling fairy dust and spice. It just gives it a little bit of tingle and interest, and it's great. I never really thought about using so many, but it works really well.
Yeah, thanks. This was an excuse for me to do some experimentation as well, because obviously it's not my track. Track has already been released. There's zero emotional attachment to this thing whatsoever. Why not try some different things, right? If I cock it up, the good news is Nick already has a fantastic mix already out there, right? So no fuss. And the whole point is a demo, right? So whether you like it or not doesn't matter. It's to show you some possibilities as to what you can do, right?
Yeah, it's a remix, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I've experimented a bit before. The challenge I always get is that kind of like how much is too much and not worrying about just muddying up the vocal reading. And then when you've got a load of stuff on, never quite working out what did it. So sometimes you end up just backing off everything and going back to basics.
The potential for creating mud is so high on this thing. So that's why each one of these outboard effects has an EQ on it as well. So with the flanger chorus one, there's a low pass and a high pass as well, right? Just because these things have to be controlled, right? It's once again, it's not the kind of thing that you want to hear on its own. If you can hear it on its own, that's too much. Even this distortion return as well, huge high pass and an additional scoop here because it was creating some more resonance and stuff. So I don't need that. I really just for these things you're really mostly more interested in the high end material because that's you want excitation. You know, you want some texture, and the texture is usually on the higher side of things, right? Any questions on the vocal? Because I would like to show one or two cool things as well. Happy? All happy on the vocal. Okay, cool. So that was main part of the presentation. Here are one or two things that are part of additional conversations that we were having before on one of those topics, one of those threads, right? So here's where we can open up the discussion a little bit. And I'm going to learn from you all as much as anything. So based on a little while ago, we were talking about how to mix a bass, right? About breaking up the signal, you know, into duplicating, breaking up the signal in one low side, one high side, and that kind of thing. And at the time, I was asking, well, why do you need to create two channels, essentially, one with a low band and one with a high band? And essentially what I did here is I did what I was suggesting that you could be done in using a multi-band compressor. So this is just a DI bass, right? And I'm going to turn... Yeah, so anyway, I don't have to solo it. I don't have to turn it off. But this is a DI bass, and it has... I've basically used the neutron compressor, which you can, if you've never tried this out, you can take any neutron compressor and just make a cut. You know, like I could create another band here if I wanted to, and I could just, you know, clear that off or whatever. And you could turn it into a multi-band compressor. So what I did is I took the bass DI and made a multi-band compressor out of it and just compressed each side individually. So this is how it sounds. Actually have a shit ton of effects on it, so I'm just turning that off for a second. Right, so and if I had a solo each side, this is the low side. Let's see high side. Right? So once again, I use a multi-band compressor on this. The two sides are doing two totally different things. You tell me, is there a benefit of actually separating them with two filters, you know, overlapping each other?
Lee, it's like doubling a voice. It's just fuller.
But if you're doubling the same frequency, you're just doubling volume. If you're doubling the same signal, I should say, you're just doubling volume.
Correct.
But it's not fuller, it's just louder.
Yeah, I mean, what I generally, for the bass, I mean, I sometimes will record a bass twice. But recently I've become a bit lazy and just duplicated. But I'll generally, as I said, it's more just so I can... I generally put something like a parallax, which is a bass VST, which just basically gives it a different, you know, you can make it a bit more distorted or a bit more of a rattle or whatever. And then I generally will compress or whatever the clean signal in, and it just really just blend them in a little bit. So I'll bring a little bit of the clean back in again, and I'm sure, of course, you can do it this way as well. But for me, it's just the way I've always done it, and because I always generally use parallax or on the bass. I've also liked to have the clean channel as well, just the original bass, just to blend it a little bit.
But don't get me wrong. If you are physically double tracking the bass, that is something totally different. Double tracking any instrument is definitely going to make it fuller.
Yeah, but I don't know if you want. I mean, with bass, I guess it's a little bit different. I don't know if do you want to double track it? I mean, I know again, I haven't really looked into it too much, but I mean, do you really want that? Because with guitar, I guess you kind of want that slight, to give it fuller. But I don't know with bass. I mean, would you want it more locked in so there's no? I don't know.
I personally don't see a need to double track it.
Yeah.
But if you do want a fuller bass for whatever reason, I would suggest double tracking it. Makes more sense than duplicating it.
Yeah, it's not just you're not just compression mode, Khalid. I treat the top and the bottom halves completely differently.
Okay, in
The
what
bottom
way?
half is usually just left as a DI.
Okay.
The top half goes through a bass amp sim, some distortion, then sometimes also a flanger and also a what's it called, like an auto wah, a filter thing, so that you don't want to put the bottom through those processes because it'll just make a mess.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I have going on here. So what I have, so this is the bass, your bass DI channel. Once again, I already did the multi-track compression on both sides, and then that signal is then going through a bus, which is this bus here, right? And on that bus, I have an EQ to wipe out everything low end, and then after that, I have a fuzz on it, right? And that's what this will sound like. Do I have the bus on? Yes, I do. Okay, and I can pump a bit. No, you probably can't hear that. Let me pump it. Right, so it is, as far as I'm seeing, it is doing basically what you just described, in the sense that I have a send going to a bus. I've isolated just the high frequencies, and then I have more processing on it afterwards. Is this the same, or is it just two different ways of skinning the same cat? Or is there a specific difference that you could see or benefit of duplicating the channel or duplicating that signal?
I'm not duplicating this. I don't duplicate the signal.
Oh, okay.
I've only got one copy of the bass. It goes to two different sends, which you would probably call buses.
Okay, we're talking the same language then. Because on the Warren Hewitt video I watched, he duplicated the.
Yeah, he's got about a 40-year-old DAW though, hasn't he? He hasn't updated his.
Well, see, I'll duplicate it normally, because I think with the parallax plugin that I know use quite a lot, and if I'm going to use distortion or some rattle or whatever, typically I want the low end to be affected as well. So I want the whole range of the bass to be, and then maybe on the DI side of it, I may do some EQ and just maybe let the bottom end be clean. So I don't know. I mean, is it much the same? I mean, obviously, I hear you say it's going to be louder. That's what you're doubling it. It's going to be louder, but I generally I'll bring them down as well. So they're, depending on the song, sometimes I'll let more of the distortion come through and a little bit less of the DI, and sometimes it's vice versa. Or I don't know. I mean, maybe my way of doing it is just lazier. I don't know.
Well, I started doing it your way.
I think I used to duplicate it before I worked out a way of using it doing sends.
Yeah. I sometimes
found I forgot, and I re-recorded one of them and didn't copy it over, and then the two bass parts were playing different things. So this way, it's safer for me.
But having said that, sometimes I won't double. I'll just if the bass sounds good, I don't think I needs it, then I'll just leave it. But typically, I'll have two basses, and generally, as I said, normally I think nowadays it's just a case of just copying it, and it's purely just. I mean, as you say, I think what you've explained here, Khaled, I think probably that is probably a better, cleaner, more efficient way of doing it for sure. I think, but and maybe that's something I could try.
I was doing the same thing as well. Actually, it felt like the right and proper way of doing it. What I kind of found a bit easier when you were duplicating it more Arnold's way is when you were kind of mixing, trying to get your bass to a good place within the context of the mix, and you were mixing further. I just found it easier to get that balance with two sliders than I did with a few sends and trying to adjust the level of
I
the
mean,
send.
in Cubase, it looks like a track. So it's got a fader. It looks exactly like a track. And in fact, if I show you my screen, if I can share screen.
This is incidentally look. This is my send here. It is a track on the side. It has its own fader and everything. The send
Yeah, as does mine. If I let me share screen. Am I allowed to share?
I have dull
Yes.
confusion here. It's going to be like two.
You cannot start screen share while Carla didn't command, it says here.
Well, Jay gave me control. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Should I stop share?
You don't have to. I mean the way mine looks is I have got the three tracks together. You don't have to, but I have the bass DI, then I call them bass thump and bass twang, and they just look like three tracks. But the bass DI doesn't actually go anywhere.
Okay.
It just has two sends which go to the thump and the twang, and they've all got faders and they've all got inserts. They look exactly like normal tracks, but that's because I'm using a superior DAW to
Probably
poor
for the
old
best,
using
screen share
Logic.
isn't working right now. Nobody wants to see Cubase. All right, so okay. So what another reason why I think that if I had duplicated this bass track, to do that separate processing, is that you, Nick, gave me already another track, another bass track with effects on it as well. So I have the DI and I have this bass which had like it was a real flanger thing. So this isn't what that sounded like. Right, so that had some sort of like a stereo flanger thing on it.
That is actually the mix, the processing that I did with the two tracks. That's got both the bottom and the half and the top put back together again, because that's once I've separated them, I then push them back together again.
Okay, makes sense. So
I gave you that one just so it had that processing on it. But yeah, because it's got a flanger on it, it is a stereo flanger. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I had duplicated the DI and had to do separate presenter and then mix back in your flanger bass as well, I'll be my head would be spinning. I'm like, Jesus Christ, 3 bass tracks, and on top of which I have an external send of a parallel present. I was like, nah, come on, this is ridiculous. This is a bass guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. Okay, so yes, that.
I'll say one more thing as well, which I did a couple of times when I was in the bass. Is sometimes when I was in the quiet section, actually, I just completely cut out the distortion. So that's sometimes another good reason why it's just easier to sometimes have a double track. Because then if you want the clean bass, just, like in a quiet section, then you can just go on. So that's one benefit. But I guess I think your way does seem technically superior for sure.
No, my way is definitely superior all the time. No doubt about it. You've never, true words have never been spoken. But no, seriously, I that whole thing about mixing a bass and breaking it up into different tracks is something I never knew about until I watched that Produce Like a Pro video. Must have been a week or 2 weeks ago, and that's when I asked you guys about it, and come to find out that all of y'all process the bass in a similar way. I would never do it. I would never even break it up into 2 different compressors. I would have one compressor, one instance of everything, just doing everything. I'd never even sent out outboard effects. This is the first mix, all transparency, first mix where I've ever done this much processing on a bass. So I learned something in this process too. Nick, I think you want to take a look into the drums because you found that the drums were mixed quite differently as to how yours were done, or no?
Yeah, if you got time, yeah,
Yeah.
they certainly sounded differently. I can't remember what I did on mine.
All right, very good.
I would just say one more thing. Going back to the vocals, I actually had an auto leveler on there, which effectively is doing like like doing it manually, clip game. I have what's it called? It's called
This is a vocal,
Melder M Auto Volume. It's a bit like, I think Waves used to do one as well. And as long as you have it on any subtle changes, it actually does quite a good job.
Okay.
So it brings up the quieter bits and takes down the other ones, but in more like a clip gain than a compressor. So it's I've forgotten about that. It's one of those things I used to always have as the first thing in my vocal chain.
Cool. Actually, you just reminded me of something. Before we talk about drums, there is something vocal related to do with the guitars. So this, once again, first time I've ever done this. I tried for the first time using a little bit of mid-side EQ to get the guitars out of the way of the vocal. So when I listened to Nick's mix and I heard all that space, I was like, nah, no way he did that. What sorcery is this? You know? So I went back in and I tried all sorts of different things to try to just create that little bit of space from the guitars, through the guitars, to let the vocal through. And this is a mid only scoop. So this is on Pro Q, it's set to mid. And what this does is the vocal is straight down the middle, and this will suck a little bit of space out of the mid channel to let the vocal through. You can't really hear it, but it is there. And after sitting down for a while, I decided that it did make a difference. I will see if I can demonstrate it. Let's see. Just play the guitar stack and the vocal stack. And is this on? That's off. So this is off first. Play a part where the vocal actually plays, sorry.
They said they needed someone. Didn't think that I could be that one. Day I was calmly thinking, what if my chance should never come? The hour come, the hero. Maybe it's time for me to stand for something I believe in. Maybe it's time to lend a hand in hand with my...
So once again, I'm not sure if you're hearing it. I can hear a subtle difference, and I think in the context of the whole mix, the vocal did become a little bit clearer because these guitars do have a lot of different things going on. Just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff, mad science that Nick has going on here. This is one of the guitars. Right, and then also I did send an outboard.
But when I rendered that down for you, I thought there was something wrong with it at first. I couldn't believe I'd actually, but apparently I did. That is actually on the track.
Yeah, it's like the first one with that sort of that phaser, stereo phaser. I'm like, what is this? And then also because I can, and because, as you say, I'm obsessed with my reverb pedal right now, I generated this is a very bright spring reverb off of this track. So this track just does a one strum every now and then, and this is what it, and then this going through the reverb come back in. It's all modulated too. Yeah, so it's just to create some almost ethereal shimmer, going through. Once again, mix low and mix quite low, but it does add something. Right. Okay. So quick look at the drums. This is the drum bus. Yeah. All right, quick look into what we have going on here. So, I mean, kick has a decent scoop. This time, not at 100 hertz, Nick, but at 193, right? I think I just felt like there was some resonance going on there, so that I want to scoop out a little bit, right? I'm sure you always want to see the compressors. So this kick, I wanted the kit to be very, very punchy. So this kick drum has a slow attack, medium release, pretty, medium compression, medium ratio and stuff, right? The snare, I spent a lot of time on the snare because as you can see, the snare has some effects on it. So let's listen to the snare. Yeah. So the snare has a lot of stuff going on with it. So let's isolate all of that crap. So this is the raw snare. Yeah, so you can see quite a stark difference between raw and processed. So this is the EQ curve, a little high pass, a little boxy cut here, and high boost there. A lot of excitation on this. So and I don't know if you ever used the retro side of this exciter, but it's the dirtiest, most grungy algorithm in the neutron compressor, and this one makes it really a lot of gritty texture, gives it a lot of gritty texture. So that's pumped very, very hard to get it. Can I solo that? No, hang on. Oh, hang on. Sorry. I can show you what that does. Okay. And as for the compressor, fairly slow attack for a snare and fast for a medium release. Not an insane amount of compression. I mean, not an insane ratio anyway, but a pretty decently high threshold, and just 3 dB of makeup gain. The majority of sound that came from this snare came from the effects I put on it afterwards. So bus 3 has parallel compression. So as you can see, the ratio is like all the way 30-1, full threshold, 50 dB and 23 dB of makeup gain. So it's just this is the whole compressor is on, right? And that is to create as much fuzz as possible, as much signal. Where did that go? Drum compressor. That's over here. Bus 3. So let's hear that. Right, so that's to bring out the whole body of the snare, and that's just mixed back in parallel, right? Bus 4 is a stereo delay, so this one has a more typical slapback delay. So mute that and put on bus 4. Where is bus 4? Over here. Cool, pretty self-explanatory. And the last thing is number B10. Anybody had B10 for bingo? Okay, so right. So this one has, this is another signal chain with a fuzz pedal, a chorus, and an EQ to clean it up afterwards. Oh, sorry, I have the Hammond going through there as well. Take that off. Okay. Right, so pretty drastic effect. But once again, it is there to be mixed back into parallel, and you can hear what it sounds like with and without. So that without. Yeah. Questions on that? Comments? Concerns? So like I said, also a lot of the sound from the kit as well came from room sounds and stuff that Nick also gave me. So there's the overhead channel as well has.
Did you have that sort of sound in your head when you started on this, or were you just kind of iterating towards it?
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't have that particular sound. But I just, as I went along, I said, okay, I want this snare to have more presence. You know, I wanted to be a statement, and I started messing around with different things to try to give it be more of a statement piece in the track. It's mixed very loud in the track, and it's large. It's a very wide snare, I think, as well. So yeah, so these are some other tracks that, you know, these two tracks plus the room as well. Superior Drummer apparently gives you room sound and stuff as well. So those I just blended it in, and I did some mixing on those as well to give the overall snare track, you know. So yeah, that's about all I have to say. Anything, any other questions or anything?
No, I think it done really good job. It sounds really good. I like it. I think it's quite amazed in all the vocal processing. That's quite interesting.
This one's
So
a lot.
have you put this? I'm sorry. Have you put this out actually somewhere where we can hear it? I'd like to compare it against Nick's, just to hear the differences.
It is. Oh, yeah, it just was there. Look, right here.
Of course, you guys have to buy Nick's version in order to hear it.
So on TRJ, on the deep dive video call number 2 topic, right here I have the static mix. This is a proper static mix, and then the dynamic mix, which is this that you just went through, and then most importantly, you have to click on next track afterwards.
Okay.
And I really encourage you, after all of this, to listen to his and listen to how much awesome space. Oh, Nick, what was the name of that plugin that you talked about?
It's track spacer. Which you sidechain from the vocals to which I sidechain from the vocal to the guitar bus, and it's a dynamic multi-band EQ. I think it's got 30 bands, and as long as you don't overdo it, it's really good because it acts really quickly. You can, I mean, it's got a good graphic. You can actually see what it's doing, but you can really hear, and it really does clear the space. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it destroys your guitar sound, but when it works, it's really good. It's a plugin we were introduced to, me and Jay and the other insiders, from another guy who used to be in the insiders with us, called Tim.
Yeah,
He should have been on commission because he got all of us to buy a copy, I think, but I don't think he was on commission.
And he buggered off for the money.
We'll find out what happened to him.
Yeah, it'd
yeah,
be good to yeah, because
the
yeah, he was originally he was a games design coder, but he wanted to be a musician. He went semi pro into mixing and mastering, but I don't know what happened to him. Nice guy.
Yeah, so like I said, the that mix is definitely um it's clearer. I find that there are things that you can hear a lot more, definitely sitting in its own space more, like the harmonica and maybe even the bass and stuff. I found that were coming through clearer. And the vocal, there's just a ton of space for the vocal. The guitars are all there and everything. And the vocal, because it's there's more space, I think it allows you to have the vocal at a lower level. Whereas in my case, I did not have that fancy plugin or anything, and I this was within my limitations, and I just felt that the vocal was were needed to be louder to be able to come through with the dense mix that I had.
Yeah, I always put the vocal a little bit lower just so Jay can ask me what I'm singing about, actually. So
I appreciate that.
I did listen before, and I'm going to go and listen again. But I was wondering that kind of slap on the snare might be one of the biggest differences in what I was hearing first time. I had no idea why the track was so different from the original. I wonder if that and the vocal processor is it.
those are the two things I heard when I listened back to it. Was definitely the drums and the vocal. Yeah, were the two big things I thought were different. But he did a really good job, Carl. He's not the first person to have remixed one of my songs, but he is the first person I think did a good job out of it. And so
And that includes at least one person who does this professionally for
exactly, and that does indeed include our former mentor over at
Yeah,
Inside.
exactly.
Yes.
Yes, I wasn't going to name
I
any
was not
names.
impressed with what he did with my song at all.
Well, that's
I'm
a very,
sure-
very high compliment.
Everyone's entitled to screw up once in a while.
I hope none of the other people who tried to remix your songs are on this call.
Not.
Oh, but we did record it, which is why I was trying to be more obscure. But we can elide that remark.
Oh, shucks. Oh, Lord. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, like I said, I mean, we've gone through, I think, everything on this mix. I can't think of anything else that was noteworthy. One thing, Nick, I will say is that you had my head scratching with this cello textures thing. I had no idea what to do with the cello textures. It's there. I was careful not to leave out anything out of the mix. It's there. I'm not convinced I can hear it if I solo it or not. If I mute it or not. But it is there.
Can you solo it?
Why it's there?
Can you solo it and play it?
I can solo it, but I bet if you close your eyes and I mute it and bring it back in, I'm not sure if you'll hear it. But yeah, this is it soloed. We're getting to the best part. Hold on.
That's it.
You didn't just start with a template, Nick, and just leave it in the track by mistake, did you?
Yeah, can you now play that part with everything? I'm
With
sure you're
everything,
right.
okay,
We're not
okay.
going to be able to hear it.
Maybe next time I grow older.
Bring it in and out.
Maybe next time I'll be bolder still. I'd like to reach my 20s. See if those later years can bring me something worth the living. More than just giving up my life for something they said mattered. Let my guts splatter.
Yeah.
Now I was gonna suggest, Cal, that you bring it in and out, but basically just solo it in and out as he's playing. So all you can hear is the cello, and then you can because then
Well,
give us.
put it this way:
Live.
were you able to hear it? Whether it
No.
was in or out?
No.
Okay.
I'm just interested in how it plays out. And how, I'm interested in the creative process, which is something that we don't usually talk about, is why it's in there in the first place and what it was designed to do and what Nick was hearing.
Well, if you can give me 10 seconds, I'm going to listen back to my mix and see. I can't
Sure.
play it because I can't be bothered to sort that out. But
Maybe next time I'll grow older. Maybe next time I'll be bolder still. I like to reach my 20s. See if those later years can bring me something worth the
yeah, no idea at all, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. It's over. This was released in March last year, so I probably finished recording it in January. So I don't know. It must have originally been to do with something with building it up a bit, but it's mixed really low in mine even. So
I'm sure. And actually, on the topic of clip gain as well, you could see how many clips I have made here. This section is boosted 4 dB. This one boosted 9 dB, 4 dB. So Arnold, this is a good demonstration of where I did not use a compressor. I used clip gain, 8 dB, lots and lots of clips, because actually, I don't like using compression on orchestral samples at all. It squashes the dynamics. You don't want so this is a lot gentler than me using a compressor. Also, I can never with strings, you don't really have a transient, like a sharp transient. So it always bothers me trying to figure out how do I set the attack and release time on something that's so uniform and gradual throughout. So yeah, clip gain for that. But yeah, otherwise, I had a lot of fun doing this. Thanks very much again, Nick. I'm gonna stop sharing.
you're very welcome. Yeah, thanks for doing it. It was useful for me, if no one else.
No, I thought it was very, very
It's
informative.
always interesting to see how someone else mixes anyway, and it's obviously a lot easier for me because I know the song quite well. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it's more beneficial for when we do these calls for somebody else to provide their song rather than me just using my track, because it gives me an opportunity to go and also try things that I wouldn't normally try as well. So the learning is mutual.
Good stuff.
Lots of good stuff. Lots of new things for me there. Thank you.
No, I think it's great. It's also very brave.
Sorry.
It's also very brave, I think, of people to give their mixes over to other people in general, I think. Because you really get to see,
We'll all be dead soon, so
Well, that's true.
the song's out there now. I don't care a lot about them once they're released.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks
Everyone
for doing
knows
that.
what I sound like.
On that cheery note.
Right, but I think it's good to know how you get the sound that you get and be able to clear out the space. And you have so much stuff and so many layers going on. Yet, except for that cello, you can hear them all. Except for the vocals too.
I'm interested to know though. I mean, this is the second one I've done. I don't mind doing them, every time I'm on leave and stuff. If you give me some feedback or so, the good, the bad, the ugly, tell me what you might want to see more of or something to do next time, by all means. David, you said there was one or two things, takeaways. What was something that was useful?
Well, again, I mean, probably the last 6 months, probably more like snare processing is the big thing that's came through to me. I would never even thought about using parallel compressor on a snare. Sorry, not a slap on a snare. I always think like it needs to be down the middle and just getting into that stuff. I mean, I've heard bits of it before, but like seeing it in a more kind of structured way and probably understanding more what things are doing. Because probably historically I've been a bit more, you put neutron and stuff on that, you twiddle a bit, not really knowing what you're doing, and you get frustrated and take it all off and start again, really. So it's having that more kind of structured bit me is new. And probably some of the more sort of other effects used on the vocals. Again, I've only ever tried that occasionally. It never seemed to work out well, but probably trying it and blending it is definitely a thing I'm going to try a bit more.
Actually, so as you say that, I mean, I don't have to show it anymore, but it would have been useful if I could show the first time I did the vocal processing, because on that one, instead of going outboard, I kept it all inboard, and I did an inboard fuzz and flange and whatever it is, and it was, oddly enough, even though being inboard is so much more controllable and so much cleaner, it just did not sound as nearly as good as when I used my guitar effects. And that actually surprised me, because you'd think that sending it outboard would introduce so much unwanted noise and everything. It'd be difficult to control. But those outboard effects I generated with my overdrive pedal and the flange and chorus and stuff, it sounded so much better. It just take my word for it. It's I think I would definitely play around with that some more, because I was just using the first fuzz pedal I found within Logic, so maybe that could have been it as well. But I think I quite like using these outboard effects, because it makes you think about some other things as well, and no doubt about it, gives you some unique characteristics as well to the mix. Joe, you've been pretty quiet. You have anything you want to add or ask?
No, you know what it is? I'm using an iPad, so I get a lot of latency.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm sorry I didn't kind of chime in on anything, but I'm very familiar with Nick's stuff.
He's still listening to the track.
Right.
Great. Okay, well, yeah, guys, that's it from me. So
No, it's really good, Carl. It's a lot of work you put into that as well. It's fantastic. I mean, hats off for yeah.
Right. When do you go on leave again, Khaled?
my rotation is 3 weeks, 3 weeks. So
Oh, excellent. So next month's good too. So David, got to figure out something else. Put him to work. He's not doing bandball, so he's got lots of time.
Exactly.
I think we'll give them all the bandball tracks to remix at the end of September.
Yeah, that's maybe a good idea.
That's right.
We're
That's what
still trying
the winner gets a free remix.
It's a challenge. You've got to take the lowest voted track in bandball and get it to the point where people will vote it number one.
What a great idea. That's a great idea.
That'll be funny. That's funny.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Sorry about the mix-up on the Zoom link. I apologize for that. Hopefully that won't happen again. But again, thanks everybody for coming. Khaled and Nick, thank you both very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
Really, really good work.
Yep.
And if anybody has any suggestions as to what we want to do next time, even if you want to do another vocal mix or whatever it is, something very, very different from Nick's own, everybody's vocal is different. Just let me know and we can organize it, okay? And it doesn't have to just be me. If anybody else wants to do a presentation, by all means. Cool.
Thank you.
I think you're pretty good at them.
No problem. I don't mind. All right, guys. Well,
You and Kai should team up.
yeah, right. All right. Okay. Good to see everybody.
See you later. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Deal. Cheers.